The Nintendo Switch port of Vampire the Masquerade Swansong remains a compelling narrative RPG that I've enjoyed replaying on the go, especially with the hindsight needed to avoid some dire outcomes for the cast. But this port feels brutally compromised when it comes to the visuals. That said, they don't render it unplayable by any means, so I want to cover what it does well first. Swansong is an accessible entry point for those interested in the World of Darkness setting, a world where gothic horrors like vampires, werewolves, and ghouls exist in the shadows alongside modern-day humanity. Vampire clans are the most closely integrated into human society, influencing individuals, businesses, and entire governments, while clashing among themselves to control the blood supply. To keep their presence a secret and avoid the attention of modern-day vampire hunters, the Camarilla Prince of each region strictly enforces the Masquerade, a highly organized and often merciless campaign that targets mortals and vampires alike for indiscretions. In Swansong, you'll alternate between three playable protagonists, the Toreador Imem, the Malkavian Leisha, and the Ventru Galeb, all with personalities archetypical of their clans. A lockdown was initiated as they're summoned to the residence of the Boston Prince after a code red is sent from a party celebrating a newly forged alliance with the Hartford Chantry Blood Mages, a move aimed at expanding and controlling the blood trade in the region. With unverified reports of casualties and key members of both factions now missing or potentially dead, the Prince tasks the three with following different leads best suited to their abilities to uncover the true nature of the threat. Imem is the most charismatic and brash. The unstable Leisha doubts herself but excels at stealth and subtlety, while Galeb is a jaded enforcer sent to do any dirty work. In the background, an internal power struggle plays out between the Prince and her primogens, a council meant to advise and limit her power. As for how it plays, Vampire the Masquerade Swansong feels like one part player choice-driven narrative game, something like Life is Strange, one part Frogware-style investigation game, something like The Sinking City, and one part CRPG with attribute and skill-based dialogue or investigation checks. There are also a few intense time choice sequences, one brief stealth section, and a few logic puzzles to mix things up. Over the course of 3 nights, you pick the order you want to tackle groups of missions, before being dropped into larger environments, with a checklist of evolving tasks and multiple ways to achieve them. Unsurprisingly, Swansong is designed for replays with prior knowledge, giving you the chance to save or condemn the main cast and several secondary characters in the final chapters. The attribute and skill system can feel a little underdeveloped at first, with a min-max approach the only way to really unlock several potential interactions, especially as you only earn skill points at the end of each chapter, and can only invest them at the start of the next. Play for long enough though, and you'll discover Swansong still offers plenty of depth elsewhere, by ensuring simple player choice remains important. Temporary or permanent traits you earn based on your decisions are powerful, and so are a handful of rare accessories that can be equipped to modify skill checks and dialogue confrontations in interesting ways. Using social skills and vampiric powers is not without cost, so you're forced to hunt for rare consumables that restore willpower, search for safe rooms and potential victims to reduce your hunger level, and you need to gather incriminating evidence or avoid outright killing victims to keep a suspicion level down that can make your future skill checks even tougher. There's an enjoyable flow to each scene as you first get the lay of the land, hunt for clues, scout for safe rooms and prey, weigh up the costs of the abilities you need to get information, and then decide on which objective takes priority. It's entirely possible to complete a scene with many tasks unfulfilled, especially in chapters with alternate conclusions, but there's always a way forward, either by using logical arguments instead of skills, or having certain fail states incorporated into the narrative. It's a smart design, but also one that highlights Swansong's positive and negative feedback loops. If you investigate thoroughly, get lucky with dialogue challenge dice rolls, and complete most objectives, you'll earn enough XP to boost several attributes and skills, improving your chances of similar success in the next chapter. Should you miss important clues, lose dialogue challenges, or skip objectives, you'll find yourself low on XP and your options restricted in future chapters. Now, Vampire the Masquerade Swansong was never really the most visually spectacular title, and it felt like it was developed with 7th generation hardware in mind. But that said, it still had detailed environments, decent lighting, and a great atmosphere thanks to solid voice work and an unsettling ambience. On the Nintendo Switch, there are significant graphical downgrades that are hard to ignore on the small screen, and harder still when docked with a large TV. From a gameplay perspective, the small text and interaction prompts can be an issue in handheld mode, but the low resolution and incredibly blurry textures can make spotting environmental clues, think codes, patterns or tracks, an issue on a big screen too. Considering just the aesthetics, a lot of fine detail is lost in the environments, and so too is much of the atmosphere, with no self-shadowed character models, no dynamic shadows, and no volumetric lighting. The one upside to all this is that the load times are reasonably short and it runs well in most chapters, with only minor frame rate dips in a few complex locations, though that's less of an issue given the genre. Wrapping up, Vampire the Masquerade Swansong on the Nintendo Switch is harder to recommend, as the experience is somewhat dependent on how you play. In handheld mode on a small screen, it still looks rough, but the visuals are easier to tolerate, and you can focus on the branching narrative and gameplay mechanics. If you're someone who plays primarily docked on the TV though, I'd argue Swansong is ugly to the point of distraction, and undermines any storytelling ambitions. If you've got this far, please consider giving the video a like and maybe subscribing to our channel, as it helps us grow.